What's up guys, and welcome to another pattern tutorial on Kim Dave. My name is Priscilla. I am a women's wear designer based in London, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make the pattern for this really cool jumpsuit that I found on Pinterest. I'm going to be putting up an image of the original jumpsuit here, as well as link the original designer, so the credit doesn't go to me, it goes to this creative, amazing woman. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make the pattern. In my next tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to sew everything together, and if you want to see how everything sort of starts from the beginning up on the way to the end, then keep on watching. If you are new on the channel and this is your first time seeing me, you're definitely welcome. If you're one of the old timers that have been here right from day one, you're welcome all the same. Everybody's welcome in this setting. Just take a seat, relax and enjoy. And if you'd like to see how the pattern is made, then keep on watching. I've collected the following patterns and tools to make this jumpsuit pattern. As you can see them all laid out here and flat. I have my roll of pattern paper, which I'll be linking down below. I also have a long ruler for those long lines. I'll also be needing my trouser pattern, which I have about 2 tutorials for. So I have a separate pattern for the trouser itself and another one for the side pocket that I'll be incorporating into this jumpsuit. So I also got myself my pattern master as well as my set square. I also have my marker pen so you can really see clearly what I'm doing. I have a scissors, tape measure, sellotape, pencil and eraser. I also will be needing my sleeve pattern, but I'm going to be making it a bit more shallow so I don't have a lot of ease around the sleeve head, and I'm going to be tracing it out up until the elbow point. I also will be needing my front and back bodice because the jumpsuit usually has a top half and a bottom half. So once I have all these materials laid out and in place, I'm going to be deciding on certain things. So I know I want a jumpsuit, a long trouser length, decide on the sleeve as well. And because I want sort of a sleeve, bodice and trouser, I'm going to be focusing on the sleeve, which is the main feature of this jumpsuit in my opinion. So I'm going to take some fresh pattern paper and lay it over my basic sleeve block, and I'm just going to put a weight on top to ensure that it doesn't move, and then I'm going to trace around the main points, so around the elbow, around the bicep point and around the sleeve head, because that is like the most important part of the sleeve, that curved sleeve head. But I'm going to be changing the head to make it a bit more shallow so it just sits easier into the arm curve of the bodice. So I'm going to be dropping the sleeve head by 4 centimeters, and if you've seen the original tutorial you understand why. This block was a bit more rounded, therefore it created a lot of ease when it was time to fit it into the arm curve of your dress or your top or of your jacket. So I'm just going in here to draw in the new sleeve head into the sort of the natural curve of the front and the back of the sleeve. I'm just using my pattern master to make my life a whole lot easier, as well as transfer my notches, because that would help me identify what side is the front and what side is the back of the sleeve. To be on the safe side, I'm just going in here with a tape measure to measure around the curve of the sleeve head so I know how much I'm working with, and when I've created my front and my back, I will double check that these measurements are the same or very close. Usually the sleeve is bigger by 1 or 2 centimeters, which you ease into the top of the sleeve head. So I've just gone in there and I've drawn in my seam allowance line. You don't need to add any seam allowance outside of this pattern, you just add it inside. And as for the bottom part of the sleeve, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a rectangle that is 3 times the length of the sleeve hem. So this is the top half of the sleeve. As you can see here, I'm going to be attaching a bottom part, which is going to be that round balloony shape. So I'm going to be working with this rectangle shape, which measures half of 93 centimeters. So I'm going to be cutting the right hand side on a fold. I've added about 1 inch roughly on the hem because I'm going to be putting an elastic through there, and I'm going to gather the top into the bottom of the top half of the sleeve, so we have that round balloon shape that the original jumpsuit design has. Now moving on to the bodice design, it is fairly simple and straightforward, but I wanted to make a little bit of a different sort of neckline with mine. So I folded my pattern paper in two so I have a full front for my bodice, and I'm just taping down my front bodice block using some tape so it doesn't move. So I'm just going in here to trace off the neckline. I'm going to trace out the shoulder, the arm curve, the side, as well as transfer my notches so it fits to the back of the bodice. So once that is done, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to transfer my dart because I want the bodice top half to be fitted. So I'm just using a pin here, puncturing the hole through, and I'm going in with a marker pen to just make those holes more visible. So by the time I take off this block, I can easily connect those dots together to create my front dart. So going in with a ruler, I'm just connecting the points for the dart here before going ahead to drawing my waistline and connect my dash lines to make my front bodice more clearer. So once that is done, I'm going to just go in and add my notch so it's visible and I can see it. And then I'm going to open up this sort of folded piece I have and then change up the neckline. But before I do that, I'm just going to duplicate what I did on the first half on the second half. So I have a left and a right hand side for my front bodice. So now that we have our left and right side mirrored and the same, I want to have a different neckline. I don't just want to have a simple round neckline. I want to do something asymmetric where one side is round and the other side is straight. You can decide to go for a V. You can decide to just stick to the traditional round neck. You can just have fun with this point. So I'm just going in here to create the shape I want. I had to like really play around before I achieved what I wanted. So there is no rush. Take your time doing this if you want to create something like really cool around the neck of your jumpsuit. So after a few trials and errors and crossing out, I arrived at the neckline that I was happy with, and I'm going to be tracing off that neckline around the shoulder and around the arm curve onto fresh pattern paper for the front. So if you don't really mind having too many lines, you can just add your seam allowance and work with that pattern, but it's a bit confusing to explain to you guys if I'm going to be working with the original one I did. So I'm just going in here to trace off the actual neckline I'm going to be working with, transferring all my notches before going ahead to create a facing that would help to finish off the neckline nicely. Thankfully, I transferred the notch for the bust line, and this would help me to create the bust dart. So I'm just going in here to check how much I am allowed to go in terms of dart length, and I'm going to be creating a dart that is 9 centimeters long and 3 centimeters wide. So 3 centimeters down from the bust line, I'm going to mark the middle point and then connect that 3 cm mark to the end of the dart to create a bust dart that would, help to shape this front bodice nicer on the body, because I want the top to be a bit more fitted on me than I would normally actually like. So because you've taken 3 cm through the side dart, you have to remember to add back that 3 cm at the hem, else you're going to have a situation whereby the front is going to be shorter than the back because you added a bust dart on the side of the front. So I'm just going in here to extend my waist darts all the way to the new hem before going ahead to add a seam allowance and cut this off for the front. Now that we've finished planning the front, I'm going to go ahead and draw in my facing line. Someone asked me the other time, why do you use facings around the necklines a lot? And I'm like, it's a nice way to finish off that neckline seam. And because you usually fuse your facing, which means you like press an interfacing onto it, it keeps the neck flat and it doesn't like bulk out when you have it on. So I decided on a facing that is, I believe, 8 centimeters wide, and I just sort of mimics the shape of the neckline as the hem of the facing, and I'm going to trace that off onto fresh pattern paper, which I'm going to be cutting with fabric and using to finish off that front neckline really nicely because of the unique shape that it has. So I've gone ahead and traced my facing onto fresh pattern paper, and I'm going to go ahead and add a 1 centimeter seam allowance around the shoulder and around the neck, because the front facing has to connect to the back facing, and the front has to be stitched along the neckline to the actual main front. So once that is done, the front is complete, I'm going to move ahead and work on the back. The back has a similar procedure, just that the back has a simple straight neckline. So I'm just going in here to trace off the back bodice onto fresh pattern paper, and I found that with this new pattern paper I got, because it's really transparent, all you have to do is just put your block underneath, sort of put a weight or tape it down, and you can just easily trace off your lines without having to use pins like I did for the front. So I'm just going in here to add a 1 centimeter zip allowance on the center back, because I want to have a zip on the center back of the jumpsuit. I've planned my facing as well, which is 8 centimeters wide like the front, and I'm going to trace off my back facing, as you can see here, onto separate pattern paper, because facing is going to become a pattern of its own, a piece of its own, which has to be connected to the front to make one piece that is normally stitched along the neckline of your garment. So I'm just adding in any necessary information I need. I would need to cut 2 back facings for the left and the right. So I've gone ahead and I've added every other seam allowance I need for my back, as well as cut it out so it's like a nice clean pattern. The last stage in this pattern tutorial is to create the trouser design, and thankfully I already have separate pattern tutorials showing you how to make the trouser block, how to create this, slant side pocket that I want to incorporate into the jumpsuit design. So I'm going to be linking them down below if you haven't seen them already. But one thing I want to sort of make clear is I wanted the top and the bottom waistlines to be the same, and as you can see, the trouser is bigger by 1 centimeter. So I'm going to be adding 0.5 centimeter on either side of the dart, the waist dart of the trouser, so we can take in that excess so the top and the bottom waistlines match. So I'm just taking some fresh pattern paper and I'm starting with the back trouser leg, and I'm just tracing around the waist. I'm tracing around the sort of the top part of the outer leg. I'm tracing around the crouch line that you can see here, which is a little bit different from the front, and I'm just adding my notches as well, because we're going to be changing the silhouette of this a little bit more. So right now I'm just adding 0.5 centimeter on both sides of the dart, so we can take in that excess that the waist has so it matches the top. I'm just going to go ahead and draw a straight line compared to the curved line that the original pattern actually has, because I want the trouser leg to be loose around the knee and around the ankle region. So I opened the outer leg by about 5 centimeter for the back, and I'm opening the inner leg by about 2.5 centimeters sort of on the inside of the trouser. I'm just going to go in now and connect these new points to the knee region, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the curved side of my ruler to connect the tip of that crouch to the line that I drew earlier on. So you have the freedom to make yours wider or just stick to sort of the fitted like silhouette that the original pattern has, but I wanted a loose fit trouser for the jumpsuit. So I'm just going in here to draw the new dart that I created, and then I'm connecting my dash lines all the way around the waist and any other points that I need to, before going ahead to draw in my knee line, because this is going to be a notch point that we would use to know how to connect the front and the back of the trouser leg. So right now I'm adding 1 centimeter hem allowance. I think I might need to add more because I want the trouser to be really long when I have this jumpsuit on, but for this tutorial at this point in time I'm just adding 1 centimeter. I might add a bit more when I'm actually cutting this pattern out in fabric. Now moving on to the front trouser design, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 cm seam allowance around the back before going in with fresh pattern paper over this back trouser leg that we've already made, and I'm just aligning the edges together, and I'm tracing off the outer leg as well as transfer my notches, so the notch around the knee and around the hip and the beginning of my waist, because I want this point to match. So I've taped down the pocket bag to the front so we have a full waistline to work with. I'm going to be tracing this front waistline onto the fresh pattern paper. So I'm aligning the edge that we traced off from the back with the edge of the front, matching the hip with the hip on this pattern and the knee point as well, because this would ensure that the side seams match. So once those points are sort of like matched up together, I'm going to take my front sort of top half and I'm going to check to see if the waistline match. And as you can see, the waist for the bottom or the trouser is wider by about 1.5 centimeters, and I'm just going to take note of that so I can add it on the side of the dart and take it in through that waist dart on the front trouser, so that way the top and the bottom half actually match when it comes to the front of the jumpsuit. So I'm just going in here to draw in my new dart, the two sides as well as the middle point, and then indicate the notched area along the waist. So I'm also going to trace off my notches on the front crouch line, trace off the crouch line as well as the inner leg up until around the knee region. So I opened the inner leg by about 1.5 centimeters, but I don't know, the camera did not just get that point. I didn't realize up until later, but that was what I did on the inner leg. And I'm just going in here to connect my dashed lines as well as draw a straight line on the outer leg which matches the back leg. So if you'd like to see how to make this pocket design, I already have a separate video for this, and I didn't just want to repeat the tutorial in this video. So I'm going to be linking that down below if you haven't seen it already, as well as the main trouser pattern tutorial. So I'm just going in here to add my 1 cm seam allowance for my front trouser leg around all the necessary points, the side, the waist, as well as the crouch. And I'm drawing in my knee line because that is going to become a point where I notch the front so I know it matches with the back. So once that is done, I'm going to just show you guys what this pattern looks like. This is where the front pocket would sit. There's going to be an opening there, and there's going to be a facing which is going to finish off the pocket nicely. So these are the finished patterns. There are quite a few, I have to say. So when you're making this pattern, just take your time, my dear. There is no rush in life. But these are the pocket patterns I ended up making. I had to create fresh ones because we changed the side seam of the outer leg. So just keep that in mind when you're making this pattern for yourself. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video all the same. I do plan on making it, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be my next video coming by God's grace. But if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. I'd love to know all of your thoughts, comments and suggestions down below. And until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.